It's so strange that I don't even have to do the openings anymore at my own events, which is so great. This is my team that's taken over. So all I have to do is do one or two of these. And I couldn't be more happy, excited, delighted to have Omri Morgenshtern, who's the CEO of Agoda. He and I had a fascinating conversation, I think October last year in a podcast. It was very much on AI and how he's thinking about it. And so, and Omri happens to be in town. He's based in Bangkok usually, right? You're based in Bangkok.
Yep.
Happens to be in town, and we figured we'll invite him to come here. And not only is the CEO of Agoda, how, actually, let me ask you this question. Let me ask people this question. How many of you have no idea what Agoda is? Because I'm sure there's some people who don't know what Agoda is. Okay, so Agoda is part of Booking Holdings, the Booking.com. It's the Booking.com of APAC world. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
Well, ex-China, I guess. But APAC, ex-China world was an acquisition. I think it was like, I was reading some history, 2007 was acquired, had like 35 million GBV at that point or something. At that point, and now is how many employees do you have?
8,000.
8,000, and I don't think they break out the numbers in the earnings. Do they break out the
Nope,
numbers?
we don't.
But a few billion, I'm sure. And so you've been CEO since 2014?
Since last 4 years, almost 4 years. Will be 4 years in.
4 years. Sorry, you joined
I joined about, 12 years ago.
12 years ago
It's part of an acquisition. Yeah.
as part of the Agoda acquisition?
No, so actually Agoda.
Oh yeah, your company, right? Go ahead.
Agoda acquired my company. I had a startup company back in San Fran. I'm originally from Israel, moved to San Fran, like a good startup, and got acquired. And interestingly, sent to Bangkok.
Bangkok. They really didn't want you anywhere in Amsterdam or I don't know.
We were contemplating back then, but Glenn is a smart guy.
Yeah.
My boss.
And Omri is not just a CEO. He's also a tech. That's your background. You understand. You went to school for it as well. So you are very deeply embedded in the AI ecosystem. I think Agoda, and I would say I think Priceline as well, of the companies in the Booking Holdings are like almost test beds for AI innovation, and you guys are doing a lot, which is what we talked about when we did the podcast. So one of the things that we talked about was, because I was asking how much productivity gain is happening at Agoda, both on the front end and the back end. And you said, well, I haven't yet seen the 5x or 10x that everybody was saying 6 months ago. And now we're sitting here with like Claude Code has taken over that part of the world. What's your sense now?
So I think there's a silver lining. So when we were sitting back then, and if you're in Agoda today, there's no such thing as vibe coding. There's just coding, which is vibe coding. I mean, if you're not, I think 98% of the engineers will do vibe coding. And if they're not, they're either going to do it or not going to be engineers in Agoda.
Right.
And very quickly, AI took over a lot of the code. So AI wrote a lot of the code. But when you look at it, it was cluttered. It was too much code. It was, and actually, you want to look at every line of code that goes to production. So going through all that code actually slowed you down more than it helped you. So when you look at the full life cycle of code development, it actually, you can argue, slowed us down a little bit rather than expedited us. I think what happens now is that we started, and speaking for Agoda, but I think it's an industry thing, we started looking at the efficiency, and we're talking code development, but we can talk other things as well, as the entire life cycle of a line of code. So it's not only writing the lines of code automatically, it's also reviewing the code, and then doing QA to the code, merging the code, CI/CD to those of you who are technical. Each one of those is an agent, is a tool, is a different tool. And each one of those starts, when you start, it's not very good. But then you go through a long process of optimizing that. Some of those are pretty good. Some of those, it's going to take us time to make them pretty good. But when you start getting to a stage where all of those tools are becoming very, very good and autonomous, that's the first time you can start seeing those efficiencies coming. Because really the developer can, rather where we're heading, I think eventually, is that the product manager writes a user story. They describe the feature that they want to build, and that the code is creating it. The agent that does code review does the code review, almost like an independent person. Comments, fixes. Then it goes to the agent that does QA, that adds the tests and runs the tests, and on all the way until it ends up. But by the way, there's an agent that looks across all of that and asks, are we hallucinating here? Are we creating SOX issues? Are we creating all sorts of issues that public companies need to deal with?
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, that can go to the directly to the code base, and then you get that. So I think we are starting to get there. We certainly haven't been there 6 months or 9 months ago. One, two, I think the understanding, it's not only the coding component, it's the entire life cycle. The understanding it's not easy. Each one of those is a lot of work. It doesn't come easy from the box. And every company is going to be a little bit different.
Which is a fallacy that I think people have. Like vibe coding is like the word I think just underplays some of the thinking that has to go through it.
That's it. I think, and it was discussed here before. It's one thing to build a very, very small app doing something. I think it's really, I can do it over the weekend as well. By the way, I do it occasionally for the fun of it. There's a huge, huge difference having millions of people using your app across everywhere at scale.
Spending thousands of dollars.
It just doesn't, it's not the same thing. It's much, much, much harder. Anybody that worked in an enterprise or have done that understands the difference. Or started a company, by the way. Start a company, you have 5 people that are using your service. And then you understand what happens when it becomes 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, oh my God, millions, right? It's just not the same problem to solve. So yes, it's a lot of work, but what's interesting is that the perception change was that you need all of those components, and it's happening, and I think this year we'll start seeing, certainly at Agoda, but I think in other companies as well, you'll start seeing this really, it's not going to be 100% of the cases, but fully autonomous from the user story all the way to the production. That's going to start happening this year, which is exciting. It's going to take more time, but I think that's where we're heading. So I wouldn't call it vibe coding. I would call it vibe development cycle.
I have 2 follow-up questions. One, I was hearing you saying, is it that the product manager now is the star versus the developer?
So now, no, because there are a lot of things that the developer needs to do. But I think it goes. So I don't know if the product manager becomes the star or the engineer becomes more a product manager. But I think your ability, and again, don't get me wrong, it's not tomorrow. It's a process. But at the end, your ability to describe very, very clearly what you want is going to become more valuable than the ability to translate it to Java code, right? And that's a big change from where I studied engineering. What's interesting is when you're an engineer, you're trained to think that way. So you're trained to think about all the things that can go wrong, all the edge cases, all of those. And this type of thinking that engineers have is actually very useful. You just have to describe it in a different language, which is English or whatever language you're speaking. And I think the translation to the code will be less significant over time.
So the follow-up question is, what's been the cultural resistance internally in a company that some of the lessons that you've learned?
So I think, and that's why I think we talked about it in the podcast. I think that's why it's very, very important when a lot of people are asking me about AI transformation and how do I make my company AI ready and all of that. And I think it's super important that you do top down and bottom up. What do I mean by that? Top down is management coming and saying, like we came and said, folks, everybody's vibe coding, and you get a lot of resistance. I'm used to doing that. I'm slower. They are slower. But you believe in the change and you're pushing top down. Bottom up is telling them, look, we don't know everything. What do you see there? Where can it help you? And out of that, we've seen a lot of use cases coming that are helpful. But I think if you only do one, you'll fail. Meaning if you only do bottom up and say, hey, you can use it, but you don't push very, very hard from the top down, then you'll get this resistance. Right. And just people are habitual creatures. We do something a certain way. It's very hard for us to change. We don't like change. That's why there's a field called change management. We just don't like it. And if something is working for us, we'll keep doing it until eternity or something kills us, right? So you got to push people very hard to do that. But at the same time, you don't want to overdo it top down and block the creativity, because we're very creative. And people, no matter how sophisticated, smart, capable the management team is, we just don't have the context to understand all the use cases and all the optionality that exists. So you got to enable these to flourish. So it's always the combination.
And has AI seeped into, for instance, HR?
Everywhere. So those 200 use cases, I see it. Obviously, So there are places where management push top down, and that's where you see like customer support, coding. So that's where you see the most change. But these bottom-up processes, areas that we haven't looked, yes, they are everywhere, from accounting, processes, SOX processes, right? You got to do a lot of manual processes to protect yourself in finance. HR use cases, absolutely. And our team that processes visas, and you got to go through tons of screens in order to.
You guys, interestingly, if you go on LinkedIn and search for Agoda jobs, a lot of them, you're advertising all over the world for people to move to Bangkok,
Correct.
which is a lot of visa processing, I'm sure.
Correct. So a lot of those things, as you can imagine, it's a lot of manual work of people, and a lot of that could be automated with it. So, and what's interesting is that the people did it bottom up. So because it's relatively, they started, and where we saw smoke signs, then we threw the teams and started automating it and making it better. And then you start seeing those, and I'll call those pockets of between efficiencies to better experience. Sometimes the better experience is to the employee of the company, right? In the case of, or to the new person that we bring in. Obviously, eventually it's the consumer, partner, etc.
I have a question. What's the most expensive AI experiment you ran that did not work? Where has AI not worked yet, or some failures, I guess?
Oh my God, I think we run a lot of expensive AI experiments that don't work.
And and in terms of models, you're using multiple models?
Oh yeah, multiple models. So one of the first things that we've done, because models change, and every second Monday there's a model that is better than that, and so it's so one of the first things that we've done, you're talking almost 2 years ago, is to build a layer that allows us to flip the model under the feet of the person working, and they don't even know, and it goes to another model, and we kind of try to optimize it dynamically. Another thing, by the way, that is hard because there is a lot of customization going on top of those models. So we train the models to do certain things that we know much better in our business. And then it's tricky when you change a model, you got to retrain. So you have to have this package of training and fine-tuning ready. So when you make a change, you really quickly educate the new model. So these are all capabilities that we had to develop. But I want to say on the consumer side, I mean, we try to.
Has it moved past the gimmick phase on the consumer side?
No.
Okay.
For me, no. But by the way, well, I guess we need to define the gimmick stage. I mean, people are using it. Some people are finding value, but it's not at scale. I mean, look at all the apps that you're using. Yes, there is AI there, and also on our app. Did we manage? And I'll tell you. By the way, if you want, I'll tell you when I think it will happen. But it's still niche here and there. And every time you try to do something big, so you're saying, you know what? I'm making you use a chat interface in order to book travel for 20% of our customers. The speed at which that experiment loses is remarkable. It takes between 3 to 4 minutes for that experiment to lose massively, and the system shuts it down. The system protects itself. It's like, oh my God, Omri, you're killing the business. But here's what I think, and that's the change, this change in mindset for me. There's a difference between a very good demo and something that actually works at scale to people. That kind of ties up to what I said before. So how easy is it to put something that looks like conversational, and you ask for something super sophisticated, and it gives you a few results, and you click and you book and go ahead, they gave you an edge. Easy. Here's what's much harder. Try to ask people at scale, give it to 10,000 people to use, and ask them thumbs up, thumbs down. It's called approval rate in the industry. Did you get a good outcome or bad outcome?
Right.
Getting it to 90% of the people saying, wow, this is good, this is really, really hard. So really the change is, I think what we started to understand is that the experience you need when you're having problems on the payments page and you want to chat with AI is very, very different than what you need when you are in the details page or when you're traveling or planning your itinerary. Each one of those is a different agent, different experience, different training, different everything. So I think initially we started sort of, call it again top down. We said, okay, we'll give you an experience of everything. I think gradually what we learn is that you need an agent, you need a collection of agents. Each one is doing something very, very specific. And you need to sweat really hard to get them to this 90% approval rate on customers before they're ready for prime time. So yeah, demo, I can do you an amazing demo, whatever you want.
Which is interesting, by the way. Every AI launch starts with a travel demo, which is very interesting. Like OpenAI or Gemini or Claude, they all start with like a travel use case.
I'm a believer that there is, and that's what I've seen because I tried a lot of those things. Trust me, the reason why you don't see it on our interfaces is not because we're incapable, it's because we try those things and they lost so quickly that we had to roll them back and we're scratching our heads how to do it in a way that it works. And again, for me, the trick is to understand that there are multiple tasks there. And I think the architecture goes there with agentic and there are multiple tasks. And what you need to do, and it's a little bit like the coding that I explained before. You cannot get everything autonomous before you understand all the different components. And you build agents that are good enough, 90% or whatever approval rate for each one of those. And then you can start putting them together to a holistic experience. But before you do that, then you'll get a very bad experience, low approval rate, and it's very hard to learn. So I think more and more companies are heading, certainly us, are heading to that. If you look at us, you'll see at Agoda, you'll see that we have bots that are spread. It's not one bot at the top. There's a bot on the payment page. There's a bot on search. You can ask questions on the properties. A bot that helps you plan your itinerary. Each one of them by itself, they're not good enough yet. We're optimizing them to get to this high value to the consumer and gradually bringing them together to a holistic experience. And I think it will take a little bit of time to get there, but I see how those approval rates are improving over time, which is
Do you
great.
think that obviously agentic is the word that came up in the last year, a lot of talk 26 I'm sure will continue to be. How far are we from the nirvana of, let's say it's a Rafat agent resident on my phone that is unleashed to, or whatever the term is, to go book a flight or a hotel using Agoda or whatever else, and the mechanism we can always debate. But are we there? Like how long? What tech?
With 99% approval rate, which I think what you want, far. It's going to take with 30% approval rate or kind of working, not that far. So really think doing it the right way will take time. I think even before I'm talking about booking things, even look at the foundational models, Gemini, ChatGPT. I'm a user of all, by the way. DeepSeek, if you're in Asia, you're using like 4, you use DeepSeek and you use all sorts of names that you haven't heard here. There's still gaps. There's still gap in the memory functionality and how like basic gaps before you even go to the commerce and everybody's playing with commerce. Just basic gaps in remembering what I told you. And when I ask you to retrieve what I told you, actually give me what I told you. Connecting that into other things that are doing. So there's still a lot of foundational work in my view. And I think OpenAI understands it in where they're taking their focus. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we're not there. We're not there. Again, what I leave you with is there's a big difference between doing a 30% approval, 40% approval rate scenario to a 90 or 95% approval rate scenario.
Do you foresee OpenAI or Google or Claude or any other DeepSeek in that part of the world doing exclusive deals with OTAs or I don't know, brands like Marriott or whatever?
It's hard to say. I think this is in initial stages. I think they'll play, it's a commercial, it's a very active environment. So I think you'll definitely see attempts to do that, probably by the supply side. It's a question of what these folks want to achieve. I think they'll want the variety because I think variety gives them power in the marketplace, but it's very hard for me to know.
Is the performance of search advertising going down? Can you see it?
No, I don't think so. So we don't see directly, and you see it in the Google reports. I mean, I don't know if you look at the Google reports, they report on the performance of search. So I don't think we see a massive going down. But I think a lot of it is because there's no monetization no massive monetization of AI interfaces. I think assuming that it's not going to go down, I don't think anybody assumes that. I think Google also assumes that the moment there will be more monetization, then that will go down, and that's why they're doing Gemini and all the things that they're doing. So I don't think it's evident now, but I think it's inevitable in the future. So, personally,
OpenAI just announced that in ChatGPT they'll have ads. Will you want to jump on it?
Will be in any ad optionality that we'll get from anybody. If anybody has like a massive audience like OpenAI and are willing to let me bid, we bid. Let's talk.
in Asia particularly, if you have.
Well, when I say OTAs in general, we play. We're in market. What are OTAs? And people forget we're not a database or listing companies. We're tech companies. We're very, very fast in tech. I mean, all this travel plumbing, this is a heavy tech game, right? This is one thing that we do, and we're marketing organizations, performance marketing organizations. So, wherever we can bid on something, we're there.
Let's go to some questions. What's the role of GDS in 2026? Why aren't airlines, the biggest ones, either exposing inventory direct to consumer or to OTAs? Any technical hurdles?
So I think a lot of the GDSs are exposing inventory to us. I mean, when you book flights through an OTA, then we oftentimes, it's the GDS for, at least for the full service carriers. Gradually more and more also low-cost
But I
carriers.
guess the question, the subtext of the question is, in a perfect AI world, whatever that would be, technically you're an intermediary. GDS is intermediary even behind the intermediary. So is it even more threatened than, and everybody has said for the last 10, 15 years, GDSs will go away. Certainly they're not.
Exactly. So my view is I don't think so AI for me, if it comes on top. So I don't think it changes. The GDS's problem is when the moment that there is a platform that can do the connectivity and hold the consumer, there's a question about the GDS. I think that happened with the OTAs already. So I don't think AI changes that dramatically. They still have challenges, yet they are, reinventing themselves all the time. So I suspect they'll still be around.
So Asia, we had a bunch of discussions, obviously news every day. I haven't, by the way, watched news for the last 5 hours. So if something bad has happened, don't tell me. I'm sure something has. The sentiment, this is not an AI question. The sentiment on Asian travelers on coming to US. Have you seen any sign of it?
So actually on ours, so I looked at our data, and everything I'm saying is always search data, that because we cannot talk. Actually on our platform, Asian searching in the US is pretty healthy. It's actually up nicely. I think nice double digits year over year, with places like Japan, India, even surprisingly China up significantly, like triple digits. So
from China to US?
From China to the US. So we actually see that. Now, part of it may be related to the World Cup that is coming up next. So I think that's part of the story. But I actually, from what we're seeing, it's relative on our platform. Again, we're not representative of all, and of course, our platform is mostly leisure travel, less business travel. So there are more segments but it's relatively healthy on search.
Well, that's one positive. Since the first panel was a lot about like how US and everything is falling apart. So it's good to hear that, at least from
and I'll tell you something, Rafat. I think eventually, I've been in with Agoda for we talked about 12 years, and you see a lot of hurdles come and go, and geopolitical situations come and go. But over the longer term, and I know we always look at the short term. But over the longer term, the US is an amazing destination for people to travel. It has so much to offer. So I'm just over the longer term, people will want to come here because this place has a lot to offer. So yes, a little bit down, a little bit up, but eventually I'm optimistic.
What are you seeing on customer acquisition in terms of video watching versus reading? How much are you leaning into the video platforms of like YouTube and TikTok? And I guess in your part of the world, there's a bunch of other platforms too.
So it's actually trending. So leaning, yes, we're participating with them heavily. And actually, that's one of the areas where I think in Asia it's happening much more than it's happening here. So maybe we got a head start. But you start seeing, well, obviously Douyin, which is the TikTok of China, they have a significant, it's not massive, but a significant market share in travel. TikTok is started, we see a lot of traction coming from TikTok, especially in places like Indonesia. It doesn't work everywhere. But saying
Is
Indonesia,
the loop from view to commerce closed? Have they closed that loop?
No, so they link out to partners. So it's a link out at the moment. They have their decisions to make down the road, of course, but they're definitely able to take more and more consumers, especially young consumers, and convert them to travel. Usually in certain use cases where the dates are not certain, or so it's more like a couponing play, I think, but gradually becoming more of a search result play. But it's definitely happening, and definitely the numbers there are growing interestingly, and they're expanding to more and more countries. So I would estimate that you'll see TikTok becoming a a very valid marketing channel or even a travel player in the next few years in the US.
Somebody who has some issues with Agoda. Rate parity is a nightmare with Agoda. Distribution to other websites you own is incredibly opaque. Sorry. When will Agoda be more transparent with hotel clients?
When will Agoda be more transparent with hotel clients?
From a rate parity perspective.
I hope today.
Well, the good news as a consumer is I do find when I do go to Asia, the rates on Agoda are usually cheaper than anything else. So that's great as a consumer.
Yeah.
This industry is not happy with you.
I look at that. We care deeply about our partners. I don't know who. There's always, one of the things that you learn when you are a CEO of a company that gets. We don't disclose numbers, but as you can imagine, it's a lot more bookings every day than the people in this room. A lot more, orders of magnitude a bit more. Then there are always people that something bad happened to them, right? Always, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. It doesn't matter if they're unhappy, and the same with the partners, right? Their partners, something bad happens to them, or they're interacting with a an account manager that don't do their job well. So if they exist in this audience or in general, come talk to me and we'll fix it. What I can say is that that always happens, and we try to fix it all the time. We're not 100% successful, but we care a lot.
One last question. In terms of, back to AI, in terms of pricing and the sort of real-time nature of pricing that airlines and hotels are there in, is AI there yet on that part?
I think it's one of these areas that people underestimate. People underestimate the complexity of the price. Travel is so price sensitive. Again, what people need to understand, the travel expense, usually the people that talk about travel are people that for them they're traveling a lot. For them, travel is not a big expense. Or maybe it's a big expense, but it's an expense they incur a lot of times. The typical traveler, leisure traveler, is not that beast, right? They travel once or twice a year. It's a huge expense for them, right? They're very, very careful. If they get it wrong, there goes the year, right? And those people tend to think about those things very, 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 very differently. They tend to be much more cautious. I think we oftentimes just forget that it's not really the same audience that we're dealing with.
That's true. So you're saying that the LLM part of AI, because Gen AI is one flavor of AI. I guess machine learning world.
So I'm saying their problem, those people's problem are super sensitive, say, to price. The main problem, they want it to be easy. But book me a hotel in whatever here and there and get it over with, that's not the main pain point for those people. Yes, they want it to be easier. The main pain point is I want to make sure 100% that I'm getting the best price on that thing.
Yeah.
100%.
So you can't play too much of the price because that would.
And this is the one vacation I'm taking this year. So I want to see in my eyes the 10 options that I have there, or 15, and I want to pick the one that will make my wife the happiest or me the happiest. So their problem is not necessarily how quickly, and I think sometimes we forget that, but we need to solve, sometimes we forget the real problem of the customer. The real problem of the customer is that they are constrained on resources, and some of them enjoy the process, by the way. Travel is half visual. It's not like, maybe flights we can argue, but certainly accommodation is half visual. They want to see and feel and get excited, and they want to see the options. It's like picking from a menu in a restaurant. Exactly.
Chatbot interface.
Eat the steak. Wait, but do they have something else than the steak? What's the vegetarian option? I want to see. That's the
same thing. A year from now, well, since we're at the start of 2026, what's your AI marching orders for the team?
Oh my God, they're very long. I think.
How will you judge success by end of this year?
So there are two areas there are a lot of areas where AI is flourishing, and we have sort of KPIs there to try to advance. There are three areas that I think are super dramatic for us. One is customer support AI is already dramatic in the impact that it's making on our ability. It's actually two things. It's the efficiency, but it's also the happiness of the user, because things happen faster.
Right.
Like when you can resolve cases faster, people are happier, right? So we can decrease the resolution time significantly with AI. So that's an area that has to keep improving, and we have a lot of ideas there. And that's one. Second thing, I really want to start seeing autonomous software development this year. cover to cover. It's not going to be 100%, but certain percentages, cover to cover, going through all those agents that are good enough in order to do the work autonomously. It's scary as hell. My CTO looks at me, is like, you're okay, you're good. You want us to go have a drink?
Yes.
But I think we're going to get there because you gotta have the guts to do it at a certain extent, and then you learn from it and move on. And I truly believe that this is the future, and this will lead to all the savings and efficiencies that everybody wants to see. And the last piece on the consumer facing, and we can talk about it a lot, but we need to take it from a gimmick to something that is useful to people.
That's useful. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. We're out of time. Thank you, Omri. We can talk a lot.